Hello there, welcome back. I'm Shannon, this is Hope Grows, and I want to talk today about prepping, whether or not it's biblical. And I want to talk about it because everybody's talking about it. I mean, not maybe the is a biblical part, but it just seems like every time I turn around, there's some new podcast or YouTube channel or something devoted to that. And the question I've been asked by several friends is, as a Christian, does it show a lack of faith if you're prepping? And I just want to give my thoughts about that because I don't call myself a prepper, but I do consider myself as someone who wants to be ready if something happens, if that makes sense. And so really, just when the question is, oh, sorry, there's bugs here. The question being, is it biblical? Well, then you need to look at the Bible to answer that question. And we know that the first prepper, I mean, really besides the Lord, because he looked ahead, saw that trouble was on the horizon for us, and prepared a plan. So he really was the first, he really was the first prepper. But next to him, we look at Noah. And, it had to be a strange thing when God told Noah that rain was coming because it had never rained on the earth before. There'd been, I think people believe that the water vapor was all up in the clouds, which kept, a more temperate climate or whatever. But he didn't even know what that meant when God told him he was going to cover the earth with rain. Now, some people say that he took 120 years to build that ark, so that's a pretty long time. And of course, he, was ridiculed by everybody for doing so. But God told him to prepare and store whatever would be needed for repopulating the earth. So I'm thinking in 120 years' time, Noah probably had time to throw a couple of 50-pound bags of wheat berries up on the ark, or, something like that. I don't know if he had access to rice and beans, but I think there was food on that ark and tools and all sorts of things. So we see right there that it's not unbiblical, but we also see that God directly told him to do that. It is getting windy here. I hope you like chimes because you're going to get a lot of them. But then you want to look too, that was in Genesis 6, but in Genesis 30, we see that Joseph was told by God in a dream, as he was, second in command in Egypt, that there would be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. So with the blessing of Pharaoh, he came up with a plan whereby in those 7 years of plenty, he would put food aside. And so when the famine came, they were able to take care of not just Egypt, but also to bless some of the neighbors. So Joseph was told to do that directly. Now, when God tells you to do something directly, you need to do it. And so, we may sit and think about, well, I haven't heard a voice from God or had a dream or anything like that. But we need to look further in the Bible because there are some verses that really make it clear that if you see something coming, you should be doing something about it. So the first one, of course, I'm not ready. I got to open my iPad. But this is the famous go to the ant passage. And what we're told is, let me find it. I am so sorry. It's in Proverbs 6:6-9. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? So, if the lowly ant is smart enough to realize that winter's coming and she needs to put some food aside for that, there's really no reason we shouldn't be able to look ahead and see what we should be doing. So, for instance, I'm always so amazed when hurricane season comes and they always show, maybe there's going to be a giant one heading toward Florida or whatever. And the news is full of pictures of people just flying through the store, throwing water bottles in their carts, or they're at, Home Depot and they're loading up on plywood. And every single time I look at Dave and I think, don't they know a hurricane's going to come every year? I mean, you would think you would always have water stored and you would just take off the old plywood, stick it in the garage, for the next time. So I don't know, that's interesting to me, but there are lots and lots of reasons why we need to look ahead. Another verse that I really like also in Proverbs is Proverbs 22:3. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. And that's kind of that example I was giving of Florida. You should always be prepared. when you live there or any of those Gulf areas. So, for us, we have to be aware of the weather all the time because of the little things we do here on our hobby farm. For instance, I've been doing a lot of this, getting our blueberries. Look, honestly, isn't that enormous? Look at that big blueberry. But I've been picking those and I'm getting ready to make spicy blueberry jam. And I've been dehydrating apples, and any little thing that we're able to harvest or get out of the garden, I'm either canning it or dehydrating it or freezing it. So I have to be aware of the weather and the time of the year, the season, because in my herb garden, there's just a certain little time when I can harvest St. John's wort. And if I wait even a couple days, the little, I don't even know what to call them, they're like little buds. When you squeeze them and they're ripe and you want them, your fingers turn red. A couple days later, you can squeeze them and there's no such thing. And that red color is the what you want out of that herb, the extraction. So there's that. And then, same with some of my other herbs. There's just a time. You have a short period of time to harvest them. And you don't want to have, okay, for me, I don't want to not have fresh herbs in my apothecary. I don't know why that was so hard to say. But the other thing is, we heat our house by firewood. We have a wood stove, and so Dave is always conscious of the ticking clock and the fact that as the summer goes on, he needs to have that firewood stacked and ready to go. And if we just wanted to skip out and just play all summer and then think about the firewood in October, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So it's just prudent to look ahead and see what's going to happen. Now, we always know that winter's coming, even when it's blazingly hot like it is here. It's 80 degrees right now. It's just miserable to me, nobody else. It's funny, Dave and I were talking about this, and he loves this weather, and we've been married 37 years, so we've talked about this quite a lot. And I think I got him to understand, because he said, well, people need to be outside because we get rain 9 months out of the year. I'm thinking 9 glorious months. He said, and we only have, 3 months of really nice sunny weather. So, it's a time to go out. And I said, okay, let's say that you could not eat curry 9 months out of the year. So you'd better eat it June, July, and August. He hates curry. I love curry. And he kind of looked at me. I said, just because that's the only time you can doesn't mean you want to. I mean, I really am just somebody who the heat just drains me. I mean, I'm amazed I'm talking as fast as I am, although that is kind of my default, but I should be sitting in front of the air conditioner right now. But anyway, where were we? Oh, this happens to me all the time in the middle of retreats. No, I lost it again. All right, I'm just gonna look at my book. Okay, so you always have to kind of look at what's on the horizon. Now, some things we know for sure. That's what I was talking about, that we know winter's coming, even if it's July or August and it's hot outside. You don't have to feel that 20 degrees or 10 degrees or whatever in order to know that winter will come. It's just going to come. So we're always kind of looking ahead, and it's not wrong to do so. I think it's prudent. But there are other situations like, for instance, where we live, it's earthquake country. And we had one in 2001, or I think it was 2001 in February. And it was kind of shocking to everybody because we hadn't had one in a long time. But the geologists are looking at our area, and we're actually overdue for a really large, like 9.0 earthquake. They can look in the geologic column, look at the strata there and see, they can tell exactly when we've had these really catastrophic earthquakes. So I believe it was something like 250 years was our average, and we're now at like 320 or something like that. So we know we're overdue for that. Well, in our area, we're the land of 1,000 bridges. So if we were to have a big earthquake like that, it could be a really long time before anybody could get to us, because I can't even think how I would get over into the next town without having to go over water somewhere. So it's just something we don't think about that often. Well, I do, and here's the reason: because we have the largest plot of land in our families, both of our families, and I have children and I have grandchildren and sisters, and I mean, I've got all these people that I know would want to come stay here if they couldn't get their water, their city water, or if they just had it prepared, and I'm always got stuff going. But I never like to have someone over to my house when I can't offer them food, and that's not going to be any different. if I have 20 people living with us during the aftermath of a large earthquake or something, I want to have food for them. So I've always been someone that stocks things away and has a little bit extra of this, that, and the other. Now, like I said, we have no idea when that is going to come, but other things hit us unexpectedly as well, such as what if you lose your job or your spouse loses their job and money's very tight. It would be wonderful to have extra food that you wouldn't have to use what little money you had to go buy groceries. You could use it for bills and such. There are things going on right now that we're all seeing in the news. For instance, inflation is horrid. I don't care what they say. There's no 9% inflation. When you can buy, a can of peaches for 88 cents several months ago, and now it's $1.40. That is a huge increase. Look at chicken, look at eggs. Eggs are up 48%, I believe it was. I'm glad we grow our own, but we can just see it. Dave and I went to Costco last week, and we were stunned that our little cart, we didn't even have that much in it, but it was $400. I couldn't believe it. We did buy some meat, we bought some hamburger, we bought some, one of their $4.99 lost leader rotisserie chickens, because I make some soup out of that. That's pretty good. Or bone broth I make out of that. But anyway, we really didn't have that much in there. We had a little bit of vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. It was just really startling to see how quickly it added up. And things that I would buy before, like we would buy bacon there, and I believe it was always about, I kind of think it was $9, $9.99, or maybe it kind of crept up to $11, but it's $20 now for bacon, for 4 bacons. That's almost double. So you look at that, and here's the point, is why would you not want to buy bacon today at $20 if in a year it's $30? Now, that's a horrible example because I don't want to buy bacon at $20, but vegetables, canned vegetables are a great example of that. They're just going up and up and up. And we really love chili, and there's a whole story behind that too. I'll tell you another time. But I was always able to find chili someplace in town for 99 cents, and I would buy a dozen or more. Well, now that same can of chili is $1.99. That is a 50 or 100% inflation right there. So I'm happy for all the cases of chili that I have bought in the past that I paid 99 cents for. So it's not stupid to buy ahead when you can, when you know it's a good price or it's the loss leader in a store. You're never going to be sorry for that, unless it's something that you stick away in a closet and you don't look at for 10 years and it's past its expiration. Then you might not be too happy that you spent that money, but just think about it as freezing the price. So 3 months, 6 months from now, when you're eating a 99 cents can of chili and your neighbor's eating a $1.99 can of chili, you've actually been a good steward of your money. So for that reason alone, there's nothing unbiblical about being smart with your grocery budget and being a good steward. So there's that reason. Then there's also just odd things happening, like all the food supply chain or delivery chain or whatever they call that. There's a lot of interruptions to that. And I've heard of truckers that, because diesel's gone up so much, they just, even though they had contracts with people to deliver food, they said, I'm not doing it. They couldn't fulfill the contract and not lose money because of the gas prices. So, we've seen interruptions a lot, and I don't know that that's not going to continue. And then there's all these food production places that are burning to the ground. I mean, Azure Standard, their headquarters burned under odd circumstances, and just so many of those. Like, I heard that last year only 2 happened, and this year, I think it was April or May, that we'd already had 18 or 20 happen. So that doesn't help. The whole bird flu thing, where they're checking backyard chickens and doing their own test on them, and then if they tell you that the test says that your bird has, or your chicken has bird flu, they're killing them. This happened in a town not too far from us. I don't know what all that's about. I just know that I don't want to be at the mercy of anyone else. If I have my family come live with me, I don't want to have to scramble for whatever we need. I'd rather just get a little bit here and a little bit there, and that's what I've been doing. Now, when people ask me, like, what do I do and how do I start? I'll tell you that we went to Haiti, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago for a mission trip. It was just amazing. But we took a trip up to this little village that would have been a 45-minute drive on the road up the mountain if it was a good road. But with all the potholes and going over creeks and streams, it turned into a 4-hour trip. So they don't come down to sea level very often, and it's unusual for them to have dried fish. But if someone does come down and they are able to get some fish, then they have it for the village, but just little bits of it. What they survived on, every single day, the women in the village had these giant pots, and they would cook rice and throw some beans in there. Not even an equal rice and beans situation. It was mostly rice, and you hoped you had a bean or two in your bowl. But they had 400 or so people up there, and they were living on rice and beans and taro root. Not that I'm saying that's the optimal diet, but you can survive on rice and beans. And so I always tell people, you won't be sorry if you get a bag of, don't get brown rice because it can go rancid if you don't use it fast enough. But white rice, which I know it's not as nutritious, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about putting something in your body that'll satiate you, satisfy your hunger. But the long grain rice has a good long shelf life if you take care of it. If you keep it, store it well. And the same with beans. I mean, I come from a long line of bean eaters of all kinds. Dave had never heard of red beans before we got married, and he loves them now. They're so good. I'll give you the recipe sometime. But it doesn't matter. Great northern beans, red beans, pinto beans, whatever. Get a variety. You will never be sorry you have those. And, once I initially started doing all that, I thought, well, if I was making rice and beans, it might be nice to have some sriracha. So I made sure I had plenty of sriracha, because our whole family eats sriracha. And then you just kind of go from there. I was reading on Twitter again, this whole, I think I might have mentioned it in my very first video, this whole thread about the guy that said, most of us have no idea about how bad things could get in the next 12 to 24 months. And I think I told you that within just a few hours, they had 700 people respond. And this one woman said, I'm trusting in God. I'm just paralyzed. I know I should go and get some things, but I just can't. I feel overwhelmed. And so I wrote, she said, I'm just waiting for him to come and get us. Well, I would love that too, let me tell you. And it's going to happen. But I just wrote and said, don't make it so hard on yourself. Every time you go to the store, get 1 or 2 extra cans of whatever you're buying and, rotate those, which means that you eat the oldest date first as you replenish your pantry. But I said, just buy a couple of extra things here and there. And, yes, the plan is let's have Jesus come and take us out of this madness, but leave an explanation of the gospel in your pantry so that maybe you're blessing someone else if we get to go out of this madness. So that's kind of my feelings about that. And I don't think we do any of this out of fear, any of it. This is, don't be scared, be prepared is kind of the motto. And fear has no place in the heart of a believer because, as I've said before, we need to make sure that our demeanor and the words that we speak are signifying to everybody that we completely trust God. It was very powerful for me when I was in the hospital with COVID. I remember lying in the ICU, just not really knowing what was happening. And I remembered, I think I did talk about this in the first video, that I didn't know I was so close to dying. I really didn't. But I did entertain the thought of what would that be like, and I was okay with it. I can't wait to see my mom again, and of course to see the face of Jesus for the very first time. But in the midst of that, I was reminded of Paul when he said, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And by that he means if I'm going to live, I'm going to be proclaiming Jesus with every breath that I have. And if I die, I get to go be with him. So it's a win-win situation for every believer. So we are not preparing or stocking up or whatever you want to call it so that we can survive. It really isn't about that. It's to take care of other people. You want to have enough to share, but also, it's just being smart with the breath and the heartbeat that we've been given is, okay, if it looks like hard times might be coming, I'm going to think ahead and try to just be wise about this whole thing. But as in everything, we live by faith and we walk by faith and we store up by faith. As I said, maybe somebody else will benefit from your little extra cans that you have in your pantry, but either way, you'll never be sorry. You just won't. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that and whether you're stocking up or whether you've thought about these things. everybody has to do what the Lord's telling them to do. And you can't go by what anyone else says. But as I pointed out, the scriptures are pretty clear about being prudent. Now, let's just talk briefly about the other end of that spectrum. There was the man in the New Testament who was wanting to tear down his barn to build a bigger storage area so that he could put away more of the harvest. And his whole idea was, I'm going to just stock up everything and then I won't have to work again. I think it was a lazy motive there. And the Lord said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be, how does that go? Your life will be required of you. So, don't do it for a selfish reason, and don't do it because you're so desperate to stay alive. Remember, guys, life is this big and eternity is that big. And this is just the lobby of the mansion that we're waiting to go to. So it's not about trying to survive for, 100 years. It's really about being smart and being considerate of other people and being ready for hordes of people to come. If you're like me and people might come stay at your house, I want to have food for them. So anyway, I just thought I should talk about that. But like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Wait, don't go anywhere because I have one more little thing to say. If you like what I'm talking about, if these videos have any benefit to you, would you please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing? I'm finding that on the platform that I usually share it on, no one that I know hardly is getting any notifications of it. And I think that's by design. But if you have heard these and you think that girl has lost her mind, do feel free to move on because it's a big internet, YouTube has 1 million people on it. But if it's something that you value or you think someone else could benefit from it, I would really appreciate your help. Thanks.